my YouTube channel. My name is Vijeta, and today we shall be continuing with Coriolanus. Last time we discussed some stuff about Coriolanus. Now let us begin with the main characters. So, Caius Marcius, who was later named as Coriolanus, is actually the name of Coriolanus. Just remember it, it might be asked. Manius Agrippa, senator of Rome. Cominius, consul and commander in chief of army. Titus Lartius, Roman general. Volumnia, Coriolanus' mother. Virgilia, Coriolanus' wife. Young Martinus, Coriolanus' son. Valeria, chaste lady of Rome and friend to Coriolanus' family. So I think that is enough for Coriolanus because not much is asked from this play generally. So this is more or less that you need to know. And if you wish to read about it, of course, you are welcome to do so. Now we come to Timon of Athens, written in 1605-1606, and it was probably written in collaboration with Thomas Middleton. The earliest known production of the play was in 1674, when Thomas Shadwell wrote an adaptation under the title The History of Timon of Athens, the Man-Hater. Karl Marx even discusses and quotes Timon in his economic and philosophical manuscripts of 1844's and Capital, Volume 1. Charlotte Bronte even includes an allusion to Timon in Villette, written in 1853. Herman Melville references Timon repeatedly in his novel The Confidence Man, 1857. The novel was written in that time. Charles Dickens alludes to Timon in Great Expectations, written in 1861, when Mopsle moves to London to pursue a life in theatre. Thomas Hardy alludes to Timon in his short story The Three Strangers, written in 1883. So yeah, a lot of people have mentioned Timon. Even Vladimir Nabokov, the celebrated author of Lolita, he also borrowed the title for his novel Pale Fire, written in 1962, from the quotation of Timon of Athens. The sun's a thief, and with his great attraction robs the vast scene. The moon's an errant thief, and her pale fire she snatches from the sun. A little bit of apostrophe on the suns and the moons, otherwise the quote is mostly correct. And Timon wrote an epitaph for himself, part of which was composed by Callimachus. And it reads like this: He lies a wretched corpse of wretched soul, bereft, seek not my name, a plague consume you, wicked caitiffs left. Here lies I, Timon, who alive all living men did hate, pass by and curse thy fell, but pass and stay, not here thy gate. So yeah, written in archaic English, but one can understand what Timon is trying to say, his disappointment with the world and the treatment of his is something that is very evident in this epitaph. So one can say that it's a powerful play. The main characters are Timon, the Lord of Athens, Alcibiades, captain of a good military brigade and a good friend of Timon, Apemantus or Apermantus, a philosopher and churl, Flavius, Timon's chief steward, Flaminius, one of Timon's servant, Servilius, another servant of Timon, Lucilius, Timon's servant and a romantic youth, Ventidius, Timon's friend and in debtor's prison, Lucullus or Lucius, Timon's friend, Sempronius, Timon's most jealous friend. So now we come to the plot. In the beginning, Timon, later a misanthrope, is a wealthy, generous Athenian gentleman. He hosts a large banquet attended by nearly all the characters. He's kind of like the Great Gatsby. Timon gives away money wastefully, and everyone wants to please him to get more, except for Epimantus, a churlish philosopher whose cynicism Timon cannot yet appreciate. He scorns Timon's flatterers. So yeah, he has got one friend who really wants him get misused, and naturally, Timon doesn't approve of him. Timon accepts art from poet and painter and a jewel from a jeweler. By the end of Act 1, he has given it away to another friend. They all come to Timon, hoping to sell him their wares, for Timon is a very generous man. When Timon learns that his friend Venturius is in jail, he sends money for his freedom. Alcibiades arrives and Timon welcomes him. Timon calls all his friends to his home on a feast. Epaminondas declares that he has come only to see the villainous flatterers who will fill Timon's house. So you see, Epaminondas has some sense, but alas, Timon doesn't listen to him. Timon speaks about his fondness for his friends and the pleasure that he finds in giving them gifts and never expects for any return. Timon's servant Flavius worries that Timon will run out of money if he continues like this. Now, Athens citizens are amazed by the generosity of Timon and think that he has some magical powers. The three creditors, friends of Timon who lent him money, ask to pay him the debt by sending a servant to Timon's door with bills in hand. Now, Timon has realized that all his money is over and he's in debt, so he tells Flavius to sell his lands, on which he replies that the lands are already mortgaged. Timon asks Flavius why didn't he tell him earlier, about which Flavius replies that he tried to inform him several times, but Timon never listened. So, yeah, Timon is in a bit of a stretch. Flavius tells Timon that when you were rich, everyone praised him, but now everyone will abandon you. And he's kind of right. Timon does not believe it and sends servants to ask his friends for loans. But Flavius said that he has already tried and no one is willing to lend him anything. Each of the three servants of Timon go to Timon's friends' houses to ask for a loan, but everybody refuses. Servants also ask for the loan from Ventidius, who was actually released after the ransom paid by Timon, and he is also such a brat, and he doesn't give any money for Timon. Timon is now enraged to be trapped in his house by a group of creditor servants, and plans for a last dinner party. Now Timon invites all his friends and other lords, and yeah, they come obviously, shameless people as they are. He says grace over the covered dishes, asking the god to be sure to give never too much to mankind and always hold something back and never ask for anything back, for mankind will abandon them. And very, very powerful actually this is, because we live in an era where we have mostly the excess of a lot of things, and somehow it has made us deficient even more. And it's very powerful the way he asks God to never give too much to mankind and always hold something back. I think why a lot of writers took inspiration from Timon is something that is reflected in this philosophy and in this self awareness of Timon and the general nature of mankind and things. And this is a very deep and well known thought. And I suppose that is why Shakespeare is considered to be so great, because this is the level of self awareness. One thinks that, one having wealth and all kinds of prosperity is something that is to be aspired for. But somehow, excess of having something is not suitable to the very nature of mankind. Mankind, human beings run on the principle of balance and not excess. Excess of anything is bad. It's like a plague in some ways, and this is something that one realizes after a lot of experiences and seeing this in the piece of literature so old, which ages back to so many years ago. It shows the kind of greatness that Shakespeare was capable of, and why people still talk about him, and why they are inspired by him. It is something that is truly astounding, in my opinion, at least. So, yeah, anyways. So, now what happens is, in that dinner party, he reveals the dishes. I mean, he removes the covers and The dishes are filled with stones and boiling water. He curses the flattery of his friends and leaves Athens. On the other side, Alcibiades is banished by his senators for saving one of his friends who was sentenced to death. Alcibiades leaves to raise an army to attack Athens. Flavius shares out his last money and sets off to serve Timon in the wilderness. While in search of food, Timon discovers a hidden cache of gold. He thinks that he is no longer in need of it, and after taking some gold, he buries it again. So you see, Timon doesn't go back on his word. He takes what is necessary and then he just buries the rest of it. Because he knows that excess of anything will make him go back to his old ways. And I think that is why he is so much loved or so much um, reflected on by so many authors. As a character, he is something quite interesting and quite multidimensional, it seems. Now, Timon is visited by all the manner of men, including Alcibiades. When he hears his friend's intention of destroying Athens, he donates his gold and urges him to massacre everyone. Epimantus comes to Timon's cave in the forest and scorns him, remarking that all his fall came from being so generous. Now the two insult each other. Timon confesses that he hates humanity. Both discuss their desire to turn the world over to the beasts. But in the end, insults Epimantus and Epimantus departs. Flavius arrives offering Timon his last money and weeping. Timon realizes that Flavius was the one honest man he came in contact with in Athens. Timon gives him the gold and orders him to leave. So yeah, Flavius is the one friend which we all deserve to have in our lives and which we should aspire to become in other people's lives as well. So yeah, poet and painter hear that Timon has gold, so they reach out again to ingratiate themselves to him. Shameless people, I suppose. Timon sends them off. Flavius returns with two senators who announce that people have determined that Timon's treatment was unfair and they want him to return to Athens. The senators believe that Timon's presence in Athens will halt Alcibiades' invasion, but Timon refuses. Now, Alcibiades arrives at the gates of Athens. The senators attempt to defend the city, explaining that not everyone in Athens insulted Alcibiades, and Timon and they tell him to come in the city in peace without killing anyone. Alcibiades agrees and punishes only those who have slighted himself and Timon. A soldier arrives with the news that Timon has died, and Alcibiades reads his epitaph. Timon died thinking that everyone hated him. Alcibiades honors Timon, a man much more admired in Athens than he believed. So yeah, it's very interesting. You will never know how many people love you. That kind of a thing is something that is reflected here, and it's a very beautiful play, very well thought out, and its philosophy is something that is very touching and very relevant. Quotes from Timon of Athens, not from, it's quotes from the Timon of Athens. Like madness is the glory of this life, I lock the heaven from thee. Oh, that man ears should be to counsel death, but not to flattery. Oh, what a precious comfort it is to have so many like brothers commanding one another's fortunes. Very witty and very sharp and very truthful, just like Shakespeare's. It's like Shakespeare's forte. You have to be witty, sharp, and yet truthful. And yeah, so that is something. Now we come to Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and I think let us keep this lecture shorter. I will leave you with this one play, Timon, and and the other plays that we discussed in short. But Timon, the play Timon of Athens, is something that is very interesting and very important if you think about it. And if you wish, you can read it. And I think the references that have been used, they are some things that one has to remember for the NET exams and other state PhD entrance exams. So yeah, if you liked my lecture, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will meet you all in the next video with Pericles, Prince of Tyre. Okay.